Attention Talking Simpsons listeners, would you love to hear us give the same treatment to Futurama?
Who would do a thing like that?
Who could do a thing like that?
Then you'll be delighted to know we're doing just that for Futurama's entire first season.
Hey, when you look this good, you don't have to know anything.
And it'll only be available for people who donate at the $5 level to the Talking Simpsons Patreon.
Oh God, no!
And along with 13 episodes of Talking Futurama, you'll get all 23 episodes of Talking Critic, the entire first season of Talking Simpsons, monthly community podcasts, interviews with Simpsons writers, and so much more!
Shut up and take my money!
Remember, go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons to get your hands on podcasts from the world of tomorrow!
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our yet-to-be-named animation podcast that will be named by the time you listen to this. I'm your host for this one, Bob. Dial M for Mackie. Mackie, who is with me today?
Justice Friends honorary member, Henry Gilbert. Hi.
Who else?
The infraggable Matt J.
And ultra special guest. He's so special, he's paying us all to be here.
Aziz Tuwe Jerry. And I may not know scientific and mathematical stuff, but at least I know how to tie my shoes.
Yes. And today's episode is the Dexter's Lab cartoon, Way of the DD.
I'm a straight-up Homo sapien.
Wow. You know what? That joke stood out to me. And this episode aired on December 11th, 1996. Do we have, special news for this yet? We're still feeling out the format.
No news
okay.
yet. But, yes, episode December 11th, 1996.
Wow,
Never
what an
forget.
age. I was 14 years old.
Man, 14. Yeah, I was big into Dexter at the time. I was watching Dexter all the time. Because it was finally an original. I loved it way more than Johnny Bravo. It was
Me
the
too.
second Cartoon Network original series, and it was so much better than Johnny Bravo.
I didn't like Johnny Bravo. I know Matt's got a soft spot for it. Maybe I didn't watch enough of it, but I like Dexter too much.
Me too. I love it.
You guys just
Bravo.
hate Seth MacFarlane that much.
It goes back that far. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why I like it. Well, I'll tell you one reason I like Dexter's Lab a lot is because there is some real Ren and Stimpy DNA going through it. And this is 4 years after Ren and Stimpy. I believe the pilot was maybe 3 years after Ren and Stimpy, but they basically take the dynamic of Ren and Stimpy, in which there is a small, angry, anxious character with an inexplicable accent and a large, dumb character, and they have antics together. And it's also a storyboard-driven show instead of a writer-driven show. So this was following Two Stupid Dogs, the first wave of this new generation of post-Nicktoon creator-driven cartoons.
There were all these Cal Arts guys who had come out of it, and they're like, we're the next generation of animators. They had done some work on Batman the Animated Series, and by they I mean the four guys I'm thinking of are Gendy Tartakovsky, the credited creator of Dexter's Laboratory, Craig McCracken, the creator of Powerpuff Girls, Paul Rudish, the co-director of this episode, and Rob Renzetti.
Yeah, and Paul Rudish now does the Mickey Mouse.
You stole my fire, Matthew. Well,
these guys were the future of animation, through Two Stupid Dogs of all things.
God.
That's
also,
the gifts Two Stupid Dogs gave us.
And the show was launched through What a Cartoon, one of the several showcase shows.
What a cartoon. What a cartoon. What a cartoon.
What a cartoon!
One of the several showcase shows made by Fred Seibert, creator of Frederator. That guy is so instrumental in what animation is these days. Not he's still making great shows Being Puppycat and that kind of stuff. But he's has been around for he's mainly responsible for the look of MTV in its height.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was the producer of all the interstitials and stuff.
It's so funny when you find out, one guy was the key to all this stuff. One mega producer was the guy who made this stuff happen.
Just looking through the credits, it's this is the mafia of animation of this era, and they all went on to do amazing things. This is amazing, too, but I was a big fan of this when it premiered as a pilot, as the What a Cartoon show, right? It was, one of the featured cartoons. And
What a Cartoon show later became, that guy, Frederator, he made a bunch of them, including Oh Yeah Cartoons, the Cartoon
Then
Cartoon
he took
show.
it to fucking Nickelodeon with Kablam. Kablam, didn't he?
Yeah.
You might be thinking of Oh Yeah Cartoons.
Oh, okay.
Did he make Kablam?
No, wait, what was Kablam then? I think of that as a
It was an
Frederator
anthology
production
show,
too.
but it wasn't as much getting different creators to do one thing. It would usually be recurring things, but they did get
Right.
some of those, and it did launch shows like Action League Now and things like that.
What a cartoon
it
was!
It might have been Frederator.
Yeah.
Is Kablam like blam?
It's much better than Blam.
It's much better.
I think what a
Henry and
cartoon
June.
was very smart in that it was a way to profit off of pilots that would never air any other way. It would be like, well, we spent all this money on a pilot, we're not going to pick up a series, but people will still enjoy watching this, and it can still be, you can still put ads on it and stuff
And it
like
did
that.
lead to a lot of those shows, like Powerpuff Girls, like this show, or the Whoop Ass Girls that was known before that.
Johnny Bravo, Cow and Chicken.
Cow and Chicken was one of them, yeah.
Like, I love the first episode of Cow and Chicken is when they have the big reveal that their parents are only their legs.
Just legs.
But then they
Another
never,
Ren and Stimpy thing.
They never show it again after
Yeah.
that.
Wait, that was the pilot?
In the pilot is
Oh,
when
wow.
the camera pans up to show that their parents don't have bodies. And then they shoot around it all other episodes. I'm like, but you already revealed it. Why are you going around? You've like the Cow and Chicken, like that's a Ren and Stimpy ripoff done poorly, I would say.
By
Or it's
someone
just
who
like,
worked on Ren and Stimpy.
yeah, they're like, well, the point of Ren and Stimpy is to be hideous and disgusting and to draw butts, right? That's the point of Ren and Stimpy.
Pork butts.
And have Charlie Adler voice every character ever.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Adler. I'm Charlie Adler as a girl. I'm Charlie Adler as the devil.
He's got a big red ass, that devil. So I want to go over one thing I think we glossed over, that this is a storyboard-driven show. And in case you don't know what that means, it means there is not a writer sitting down at a word processor typing out what the characters do. The show is created as sort of like a comic book, which is how classic Hollywood cartoons were produced. And that is very important because the reason that these shows are usually better, it's because if the person that is writing them has an interest in cartoons, because they have to draw the main images of the story. If they don't care about cartoons, they're not going to be a storyboard artist. And in other words, they're not a bored, failed sitcom writer writing garbage and not caring. Like, Scooby-Doo has fun, blah, blah, blah. Next scene.
According to John Kay, it's the only way to make cartoons.
I wouldn't agree with that.
I mean, we do a Simpsons podcast, and that is not storyboard-driven at all.
But still gorgeous at times.
Yes.
And has visual gags in it.
If you don't mind my interjection, is that one of my favorite movies of all time recently is Mad Max, and that was 100% storyboard driven.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why it's so visually striking, and I'm glad it won 6 Oscars.
It's what I loved about Baby Driver as well, knowing that they had storyboarded it to such an extent that it's not fair to compare, say, a Judd Apatow film to Mad Max, but I'm just so used to all these movies that feel just like so like loose and figured out
Point
in
the camera
post.
at someone for
They're
a
like,
half hour.
Look, we filmed 8 hours of shit. We can get this down to 10 minutes, to the 10 best minutes. Who cares? Instead of knowing why you're filming something at the time, that doesn't come through enough in enough movies, in my opinion.
And there's, while we're on the topic of board-driven shows, there's controversy right now
Really?
on animation Twitter about a lot of people don't like how shows like Steven Universe can look totally different from episode to episode because whoever's directing it has their own art style and they want to transfer that directly. Whereas on Dexter's Lab, it's kind of surprising to find out that it's board-driven because it's very model-based. Like,
it is,
it's very on model.
I mean, I kind of like the different artist approach because as with early Talking Simpsons, Henry, you'll remember that it's like, oh, you can tell this is a Jim Reardon episode. You could tell David Silverman did this scene. And especially with Ren and Stimpy, it's like they look different in every scene, not just every cartoon. It's like every scene they look different. Yeah, every shot.
Yeah, the uniformity, that interest in uniformity will more likely stamp out creativity of the artist, and there should be more. I think on Steven Universe, for example, and also OKKO, that Rebecca Sugar and Ian Jones Quarry on those two shows respectively, they totally trust their animators. Like, if you've made it this far, we trust you to take some artistic chances in there. Russ, in the Making of Steven Universe book, Rebecca Sugar describes it as, when she created the show, she built the house. Then people play in that house. And as the person who built the house, she oversees it, but she can also, it's not her job to say, like, you can't put a table there. Like, or Ian Jones Quarry even told us in our interview, he's just like, he wrote a thing, and then a board artist was, well, KO wouldn't say that. He'd say this. And he's like, oh, you're right. These characters have grown beyond me now.
No.
Like,
I just bought that book. I haven't read it yet, though.
oh, it's great.
So this episode, I do want to talk about the boarder, the storyboard artist who put this episode together. That is Paul Rudish. As Matt said, he headed up the development of the new Mickey Mouse cartoons, which are great. Which
they're
obviously,
fantastic.
the second I looked him up and I saw what he did on on this show, I immediately was like, oh, that makes perfect sense that he did those Mickey Mouse cartoons because they have the same sort of feel to them. I mean, they have a lot more money to play with, but like the thicker lines, the weirder ideas, I really see that. Yeah, very manic too.
But also old school of Mickey Mouse has a problem, he needs to overcome it. Like
Right.
that, it's very simple.
Some of them don't even have dialogue.
Yeah. And so I looked into his career. He's done a lot of great stuff. He's very talented. And it's too bad Chris isn't here. His father is the creator of Rainbow Bright, which is great because that's something that Dee Dee would love. That should be in her room.
Wow.
And I found out the one series he did create after this was called, I've never seen it. I've never even heard of it. It's Symbionic Titan. Matthew, have you heard of this?
You would love that show.
I was watching clips of it on YouTube. I'm like, this show looks amazing.
Also
it is
involved
gorgeous.
Gendy.
Yeah.
That show, it's fantastic. It ran a very short time on Cartoon Network. It was kind of a throwback to like mecha anime and stuff like that. It's very fun.
Really?
It's very interesting looking because it's also a heavily modeled show where characters' faces and bodies don't change very much, but very fluid animation.
Yeah, it's super stylized like Dexter's Lab, but things are like stretched out a little more and the lines aren't as thick. But yeah, it's a gorgeous show.
I think you'd really enjoy that show.
Yeah, it's all on YouTube because nobody cares. So check it out.
It was a big fan favorite and got canceled real fast.
Yeah,
Much like a lot of shows at that time, like the Tron Show and Flapjack. And,
Cartoon Network was in a weird position then. They were trying to refine themselves.
It was right before Adventure Time, I think.
Yeah, Adventure Time changed the network again. But Adventure Time is basically like the Two Stupid Dogs of its era, in that all these awesome people worked on Adventure Time and then founded their own show.
Yeah, it gave us, and also Flapjack. A lot of those guys worked.
Yeah, actually, Flapjack is the Two Stupid Dogs.
Yeah, it led to Gravity Falls and Regular Show and Adventure Time and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, Steven Universe from there too.
And one thing I wanted to point out before we talk about the episode,
I actually came all the way here just to debate you, Bob.
Oh my God, no! You know my rules. Charity, pick one. No, I want to talk about. So there are two distinct eras of Dexter's Lab, and the second era is post Samurai Jack, and it was really like the idea of Samurai Jack was like, what if it's all about the arts? Like, it is even more stylized. It's sort of like when Batman, all the characters in Batman the Animated Series were redesigned. Like, things are super stylized. Like, backgrounds will just be super, like floating shapes in the background. There's not even there doesn't even need to be like an actual set.
Had like a Art Deco kind of thing going on. And Dexter was very squat and also.
Seemingly,
and money too.
It probably was.
She did voice Dexter in several of the first of the returning season, but then stopped after that.
But those are gorgeous. Unfortunately, the person who headed up that era is now in serious hot water because of sexual harassment allegations, rather.
It was
Chris Savino.
Yes. I mean, the problem is he has done everything you've ever loved, and he's worked on everything you've ever loved.
He had a seat at the table at most things you love,
and he abused it.
Yeah,
everything you love is not sacred. Sorry.
He was just kicked off of the Loud House.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic
show. It's a real good show. I've seen a few episodes.
It's got a lot of very inclusiveness involved in it.
It's queering up the nation, which I love.
Like, it's a damn shame that it's got this blight on it. But at least they're still making it without him, so that's cool that it can live on without that guy.
I will recommend people check out the later episodes too. They're a little sharper. They figure things out a bit more. It was just weird to be in college and being like, "There's new Dexter's Lab." Should I be nostalgic for 1997? Like, what's happening?
There's an episode where Dexter goes to college.
Oh yeah, you're right. And there's also the amazing Dexter's Lab movie Ego Trip, which is I believe on YouTube, and it is super good.
It was supposed to be the finale.
Yeah,
like
it works for a long time.
It was the great. I mean, it was the Gendy. Gendy Tartakovsky is one of my all-time favorite this generation animators. Like all the suck up-age that John Kay gets should all be at Gendy
because he can finish cartoons.
Gendy finishes cartoons. He is a workhorse. He has produced
he's made 3 Hotel Transylvania movies.
Yeah, he fucking did that on top of all his other shit.
Yeah, it's either out now or about to come out.
He tried to make a Popeye movie, but I think he can't be that violent. Like, he's violent, he has tattoos, and he smokes. Popeye can't. But that's what I love about Popeye now.
Yeah.
But it's also why he can't work for children.
But, I mean, at least he made the 4th or 5th season of Samurai Jack. At least
that was he finished Samurai Jack,
and that was great.
That's
and
right.
He was all in,
and he got to do it. Yeah, that was what I loved about it. Like when they announced a new season of Adult Swim having Samurai Jack, I was all ready for him to do what a lot of the creators do with like, look, I'm executive producer. I'll tell you an idea and you guys just finish it. It's like, no fucking way.
Or it would look cheap, and it looks better than the show. It's the best the show has ever looked.
And there's finally blood.
There's blood.
Yeah.
He doesn't just have to cut up robots all the time.
And badass beard.
Yeah, and his
cool.
badass beard.
And a motorcycle.
I recently went back to watch the first episode of Samurai Jack, and it just amazed me. Like, wow, they were allowed to do this. They were allowed to make the audience wait this long. It's like they don't have the keys jingling in your face. And actually, I watched more than this of Dexter's Lab, and it has the same effect. It's like you'll wait 2 minutes. There will be a sincere scene of Dungeons and Dragons characters fighting a monster before it pulls back to show Dexter is the dungeon master. Like they will just do an entire sincere scene of like RPG action.
I remember in that first episode of Samurai Jack just kind of being in shock at the end of it. I swear is at least 5 minutes of just him silently slashing, well, no dialogue, killing bug robots, and
when
it's just
he slices the one in half, and like as he's slow motion going between it, all the oil flies out from the two halves and sprays
beautiful.
it.
The only unfortunate thing is with Dexter's Lab, the new generation, and with Samurai Jack, that SD era of digital animation looks like garbage trash on an HDTV.
There's
and
a Blu-ray of Samurai Jack, and it's like, you didn't need to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'd have to go in and I know people online in the animation Twitter world that explain how difficult that is. It's possible to do, but it's very expensive to sort of, I guess, quote unquote, upscale SD digital animation that was rendered at a pre-HD level. It's just very difficult.
Yeah, you can see all the pores on Dexter's face.
It's more like everything is like a weird video game character from 1997 with like sharp angles
lines
and
across it.
Yeah, stair steps.
But I guess what I love about Gendy that he brought to Dexter is that it was such a classic like Tom and Jerry kind of vibe. It's order versus chaos. It is Dexter is an inventor and he just wants to make stuff in his secret laboratory. And then he is order. He's always building things. His stock action, which we see in this episode, is screwing one thing onto something that doesn't seem to even need a screw, but he's like wrench turn,
or just
wrench
plugging
turn.
two things into each
other. And then you've got Dee Dee, who is pure chaos and destroys everything. And that's just a perfect yin and yang.
Yeah,
for a show.
what Dexter does in the show is what people when I say, "Oh, I'm a mechanical engineer," they're like, "Oh, you screw things into other." Okay, sure.
I mean, so many episodes open with Dexter doing that whole wrench on the nut thing, just to set the scene. Like now, Dee Dee comes in. Yes, hey, that's accurate. That's accurate.
Oh, and also I gotta send people to our interview with Ian Jones-Cordy because he talked about Dexter's Lab being a huge influence on him because he said he defined it as Hanna-Barbera because he said it was the flat designs of Hanna-Barbera but with the motion and action of anime, and that inspired him. Like, oh, American cartoons can do this. I can combine these two styles of animation I love. Dexter proves you can do it. And I also say, like, Powerpuff Girls was a big early one for that too. Like in Powerpuff Girls, they straight up just reanimated Dragon Ball Z fights in the show.
Yeah.
Like, the big episode where they fight the rich girl is like, this is Project A-ko. Like, this is just Project A-ko.
And Paul Rudish actually boarded the really underrated Powerpuff Girls movie. I think everyone hated it because it was just really post-Samurai Jack era, all about the art, not really interested in telling an interesting story, but it's a gorgeous movie, the Powerpuff Girls movie.
Yeah, it's beautiful, but it is kind of boring.
Yeah.
And Gendy was the animation director on it, I believe, as well.
I think so.
In the movie.
Nice.
So Gendy and Rudish worked a lot together. Like, and now Gendy is still like, he's the grandpa. He is aged up into being like the young grandpa of animation instead of the wunderkind.
But he's still like, he wants to do 2D animation. He's kind of like, he is much like Brad Bird, where like he wants to do 2D, but he's not going to half-ass 3D. Where I think that Gendy's the only guy like outside of Disney who is bringing 2D principles to 3D animation. So when you watch Hotel Transylvania, like, yeah, it's not the greatest movie, but those characters move very fluidly. They're not strictly always on model. The models change and flow, and there's a lot of squash and stretch involved in the movement that you don't see in a lot of 3D.
That's why I loved the leaked, I think, video of Popeye.
Yeah,
because it looked
that.
so different from all of this Illumination DreamWorks bullshit. And I'm like, this looks gorgeous. And I'm like, what? It looks.
And they didn't make it.
And it looks modern at the same time. Looks classic. If
It looks
if
so
that makes
expensive.
sense. Oh, it looks expensive as hell. Yeah.
But yeah, it made me sad too, though, because it just was my realization, like, Popeye just can't work today. It's not, they have to change him so much. Because I hate my time and my free time, I pulled up on Amazon Prime Video. I was like, well, what's on here? And The Popeye and Son show is on there.
Oh, that should be nowhere.
Recently turned 30 years old.
I watched one episode of it. I was like, "Oh my god, this is the worst show." It's especially because it's when I realized what I didn't realize as a kid. I'd watch anything Popeye was in, but now as a grown up, I watched it. It's like they were clearly told by standards and practices that Popeye couldn't punch anybody. It's like the point of a Popeye cartoon is that he gets jerked around until he eats spinach and then he punches someone to death.
An amazing feat of violence.
Yes, that's every Popeye cartoon.
True story. That's the reason why I actually ate spinach.
Popeye never sold me on spinach.
That was a good endorsement. It's better than that crappy iceberg lettuce, I'll tell you that much.
We had Popeye branded spinach.
Oh,
he
yeah.
was
I've seen that,
cans of spinach.
But yeah, no. If you don't eat spinach in a pie like Middle East you do, it's like it's not worth it. Yeah.
Well, Popeye ate like wet spinach out of a can.
Yeah,
It couldn't have been very good.
Open a
Canned
cold can.
spinach, delicious.
He ate it through a pipe often.
I love when his pipe is the can opener for
Yeah.
that. Oh, but another thing about Dexter, though, is that I think it was something they also did on Two Stupid Dogs, where they technically are greenlighting the Two Stupid Dogs show or the Dexter's Laboratory, but they're really greenlighting 2 or 3 extra shows you could show at any time.
Yeah.
In this case, the Justice Friends and Dial M for Monkey were the other 2 shows.
Which were better than Dexter. Like, they're the best parts, I think.
I love Dexter the most.
I prefer Dexter, but I can see.
I guess I love 60s Marvel comics.
No,
so, like, those jokes.
And they're both so into 60s Marvel
and there's so
comics.
specific jokes about that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just saw Dial M for Monkey, the Galactus and Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
That's the greatest. The Silver Spooner.
Oh, right.
We didn't understand how homophobic it was then.
And I will say, I think I like Dexter more. I like the dynamic more, but I also think Christine Cavanaugh, like, she sells this character so hard. I don't think it would be the same show without her doing that voice. And the person who does like the imitation later is fine, but
Candy Milo.
she was used to playing spunky, little girl characters or Chucky Finster. This is like a tour de force performance from Christine Cavanaugh. Like, the reading she gives to like normal lines is fantastic, as we will hear throughout this episode.
That explains why in the second iteration of Dexter he sounds more grounded.
Yeah,
he's a bit quieter. But
Yeah.
she was the first voice actor, I think, to make me want to be a voice actor, because Nickelodeon would do those behind the scenes segments in between commercials.
I remember those.
And yeah, they had one to promote Real Monsters, and it was all 3 of them, which again, it was the voice
Charlie
of the red
Adler and her, and then the fat guy.
She
who's
played-
the
Yeah, that guy's name I
armpit
forget.
guy.
She played Oblina.
Oblina,
Yeah.
the candy cane woman, and she said that, like, you would see them recording together, which they clearly never recorded together, but they would all be around like one microphone in these shorts. And she said on that short, she's like, "Oh, and you also might know me as Dexter on Dexter's Lab." And as a child, I was like, "What?" Like, I was like, first of all, because I already understood different networks, so I was like, she just said a Cartoon Network show on Nickelodeon, but also she just mentioned that she's 2 characters. Like, nobody says that.
She was fired immediately.
They made her sick.
That actually reminds me of a very famous female Arabic voice actor, which, like, we had a cartoon channel called Space Tune, and
That's a cool name for a channel.
oh yeah, it is. Yeah, they actually divided cartoons based on planets. So you have action cartoons, there's Action Planet.
What?
Adventure cartoon, Adventure Planet.
This is fucking
there's
awesome.
also, but of course they did the most stereotypical thing, Girls Planet, and it's all has no. It didn't have any like. It's not all girly cartoons. It literally is any cartoon star is a female, even if it's the most depressing show of all time. but that reminds me because there's 2 animes, Detective Conan.
Oh, I love Detective Conan.
And I don't know its name in Japanese or English, but we call them Abkarino, which means little genius. It's just a little blue creature that has a massive head. And
Doraemon?
Yeah. I have.
Doraemon?
Is he a cat?
I honestly don't know how to describe him.
Okay,
It's just
sorry.
it's just a cute blue creature. But anyway, so when I heard, I'm like, wait, his voice is oh my god! And then the bigger realization, it was voiced by a female voice actress. I'm like, what?
This guy?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, it's Doraemon.
Oh, it is
Oh, cool.
Doraemon.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's weird though. Like, I think Dexter, upon viewing this as an adult, I'm like, Dexter is sort of like non-binary compared to Dee Dee's extreme femininity. It's weird that they did. I mean, he's a scientist, so he's not gonna be masculine. But it's funny that is what's paired up against her extreme femininity.
Well, that's-
femininity.
Yeah,
it's what
but
I'd
at
say.
least he's not asexual, obviously,
Yeah.
from his crush on the babysitter.
That's true.
He's Eastern European. They don't talk about it.
Yes, that's true. Why does he have that accent?
Well, okay. It's because Gendy is a Russian American
Yeah,
too.
that's- oh my God.
That's why it's in there.
There was a commercial that kind of explained this, where gang members were imitating Dexter in the real world. It wasn't a canon commercial, but it was like, are your kids into Dexter? Are they wearing white lab coats and speaking with Eastern European accents for
That's
no
great.
reason?
Actually, yeah, you know what? You're right, Henry. I bet like before they hired the actors, Gennady was in storyboarding, like acting out the lines. They're like, that should be Dexter's voice. Your voice should be Dexter's voice.
I think there's more than a little of his relationship with his real life sister in Dexter and Dee Dee.
And this was before the era in which if you were the creator of the show, you were just the main character because they're like, we don't want to cast anybody.
We got to save some money. I mean, that's Ian Joe Sporty is like 5 of the words.
And John Kay.
Or when Paul Rubens just didn't show up to be Flapjack on the first day.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm glad he didn't show up. I love Thurop von Orman's voice.
Performance in that is, and you can't hear him and be like, you've got to be like, oh, you're like a cartoon character, right?
He's actually like a giant bearded man.
Yeah.
It's weird. I will say this again. Flapjack better than Adventure Time. Fight me.
Whoa.
Fight me. I've said it before.
They're different.
I'm sorry.
They're different.
What is Flapjack?
I'm
joking. I'm just
okay.
I'm saying this.
But this show,
it's like Chowder. Remember Chowder?
Chowder's good too.
Chowder?
It's really good, guys. So
I'm more of a codename Kid Next Door guy.
That's all 10 years.
Yes, I love that show. Thank you.
I'm more of a.
My favorite episode is one of the kids when he's like, he's transitioning into a teenager, and it was all tense, and it's just everybody's just following him, and he betrays the kids, and I'm like, I'm just laughing my ass off.
I was gonna make a joke. I'm more of a Code Lyoko kind of guy, but I couldn't get it I couldn't get it out of my mouth.
True story. That was one of the first cartoons. There's a new cartoon channel from big television empire in the Middle East called NBC, and that was one of the first cartoons that I saw, and I'm like, this looks ugly as fuck.
It's French people making fake anime.
Yeah, I never watched. I could not. It was on Cartoon Network constantly.
Yeah.
Again, of the two, I liked Totally Spies more.
Totally Spies. Totally Spies. I love that.
That's a good show.
Shout out, Trav. You're wrong. Totally Spies is amazing.
We're upsetting lots of people with our American anime talk.
Let's start talking about this episode.
Yeah.
So I want to ask Aziz. So this episode is Way of the Dee Dee. Why did you choose this episode for your Patreon podcast?
Okay, I'm going to tell you why I chose this episode specifically at the very end, if you don't mind me. But the reason why I chose Dexter's Lab is because I freaking loved this show when I was a kid. It was Powerpuff Girls and Johnny Bravo are the trifecta that I freaking love these shows. I'm like, these look visually distinctive. I love them. And even though I enjoyed Ed, Edd and Eddy, again, Codename Kids, and all of these shows, but Dexter's Lab and especially Powerpuff Girls is just this manic energy, and I just love it. And it's just silly, it's just like you don't need to have a long attention span. It's just the episode ends and it's just resolved, and that's what I liked about the cartoons back in the day. And it didn't treat you like a kid. It gave you some weird topics. It's like, wait, what?
It was a heavy show.
Oh yeah. True story. Before we start, again, we're gonna delay talking about the episode, but this is a true story. I'm not lying. When there's an episode where Dexter tries to learn French,
I'm like, I know this.
Yeah.
True story. I used that phrase. I was visiting. I don't know. It was France or some other country that speaks French. I used that phrase, and the waiter looked at me like I was an idiot. And my dad's like, he just wants some of this cheese.
I'm gonna do fromage.
You mentioned fast paced, and you're totally right. I watched more than one episode for this podcast, and I'm like, this show going back, I associate it with just super quick cuts and really anime inspired. Like there'll be like a fist flying through the air, someone handing someone something, and the speed lines going behind it, like super fast cuts.
It holds up much better than a lot of shows of the same era.
Also, the
really
theme
does.
song is incredible.
It is. Wait.
Also, very dark. It's like Tim Burton.
So there is an opening theme that is an instrumental and a closing theme that has lyrics. And my theory was they hired someone to write an opening theme and they didn't like it, so they just stuck it on the end of the show out of obligation.
But they'd already paid for it, so
Yeah.
they stuck it. That's how I would bet that is it too.
You don't think he was doing a Star Trek at two paychecks?
I don't know.
Well, I think
licensing check?
not pulling a Star Trek, but pulling one of those you have to have an opening with lyrics, and they did it as shittily as possible.
Yeah, there was like a mandate.
Yeah, no, because I didn't remember there was a closing credit scene. Then I saw it, I'm like, this is if you liked it, that's good for you, but I really disliked it.
And this one, The Way of the Dee Dee, is just. It's the 10th episode of the first season, which
and it is on Hulu in case you want to watch it.
It was a weird thing too. I recall in that first year of Dexter that Turner was of the idea of this technically was original for Cartoon Network, but we need stuff on TBS as well, and sometimes it'll be on TNT.
That's where I saw it actually.
Network, yeah.
It was hopping all over the place.
Would it play on Cartoon Planet?
It would have been a Cartoon Planet one. Actually, that was one. That's how I first saw Genndy Tartakovsky as a kid, because they had all of the guys from What a Cartoon on the What a Cartoon Space Ghost special, where Space Ghost picked the winner of What a Cartoon.
Whoa, I've never seen this.
Oh, you've never seen? Oh, look it up. It's the What a Cartoon finale where he interviews, at the very least, he interviews McCracken, Tartakovsky, and Jen Parnival, the Johnny Bravo.
Van Partible?
Van Partible. Van
Yeah.
Partible.
It's a real name.
And Van Partible wins because he was the only one who entered the swimsuit competition. And so that is why Johnny Bravo
He's an attractive Asian
was
man.
it was the winning cartoon, and it was the first show
Now you're
they got.
I might have seen this when I was 6. You're like jogging my man. I was younger than you guys. This is the end of '96, right? So I would have been 7 when this episode.
Oh, how dare you!
I was 43.
I was dead.
Speaking as someone who's even younger, I saw this when I was growing up in the U.S. For my formative years, and I missed it so much because I only had tapes of it when I watched back in Saudi. So I was upset because the only way you could watch Cartoon Network or Cartoon Planet. Thank you for reminding me of that, by the way, Matt. It was actually have to pay tons of money to watch it, and then we actually got Cartoon Network, and I had the chance, and I just saw. I just opened 24/7 on our living room TV, which upset my parents deeply.
We'll return to Dexter's laboratory on Boomerang.
Whether you're listening to this in your laboratory or out in the natural world, we appreciate you, What a Cartoon listener. So thanks so much for spending your time with us. And we'd also like to thank again Aziz, our top patron on this episode, who suggested it. You can follow him on Twitter at TwoWayJerry. That's the number 2, WAYJERRY. And we'd like to thank all of our Patreons who support us at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons and make this possible. And did you know, if you were to sign up there for just $5 a month, you get access to every episode of What a Cartoon a week early and ad-free, not to mention every episode of Talking Simpsons. That includes the secret first season that's only on the Patreon, and all of our extra podcasts we do, like Talking Critic, where we went through every episode of The Critic in the same style as Talking Simpsons, and Talking Futurama, where we're doing the same for the first season of Futurama. And we've got tons more cool cartoons lined up on What a Cartoon. We can't wait to share with all of you. And if there's another way you'd like to help us, I would like to ask, if you haven't yet, on iTunes, please give us a review, a 5-star rating. All of that really helps a brand new podcast like ours find an audience out there in the iTunes world. Thanks again, and now back to the rest of the show.
I can see why this episode stuck with you. If you were a little boy and witnessing this ending, which I was like, well, that's dark, and I'm 35.
Well, so the episode begins as typical Dexter's Laboratory episodes begin, which is Dexter is working and Dee Dee is destroying things. And I just love that is such a classic cartoon idea of like, well, where do we start this episode? In their constant state of destruction and building at the same time.
I love it.
And then Dexter snaps in a very Dextery way.
Why do you do this? You're so stupid! Stupid! Oh, and let's not forget, you're so stupid! Ow! Oh, yeah? Well, just because I know how to have fun doesn't mean I'm stupid. I may not know all that scientifical, mathematical stuff, but I know how to climb a tree, and I know how to pet a kitty just right, and I know how to tie my own shoes, Mr. Zipper Boot. Actually, I feel sorry for you, Dexter. You're like a pickle, sour, and all bottled up in your laboratory. Toil away, alone in the dark, searching for answers to questions nobody asked. Locked away from the world, never to explore the true mysteries of life. Well, you can keep your cold, sterile little lab. As for me, the world is my laboratory. Goodbye, Dexter. I shan't impose on you ever again.
So much of this is visual. I love when she calls him a sour pickle, and he's framed against, like, he's framed behind a vat of green liquid.
Yes,
It's really
I was
great.
going to mention that. Yeah, I love
so
that.
that's you could tell this was written as a storyboard because there's a visual joke to back up the dialogue.
Yeah, it's something they did a lot on the show of, you assume that because Dexter builds all this stuff, he's smarter than everybody, but they constantly reveal things like he's smart enough to be an idiot. Like he's
not
book
street
smart. That's one of the other episodes on this one is him also thinking like, oh, the world must know nothing about girls because I do not. I just learn about the girl.
And it's great. Like, regardless of how smart he is, his go-to insult is like, "You're so stupid. You're stupid."
We're talking about the other segment of the episode, the girls thing. I'm like, oh my god, they're making fun of today's nerds 20 years ago.
That is true. Yes, it rang very true. Well, same with Dexter here, though. This also feels like a modern day thing too, of like, go outside. You don't know the real world. You're just staring at your apps all the time.
Dexter would hate The Last Jedi.
Oh my God, totally.
He would edit it in 46 minutes.
But Christine Cavanaugh there just screaming at Dee Dee that she's stupid is just so great.
I can listen to it all day.
Stupid.
I realize that I'm going to sound like Triumph the Insult Comic Dog when I imitate Dexter, and I apologize. But so Henry and I to poop on. He never said that. So Henry and I were talking on the way over here about how great of a design Dexter is as a character. He's such a great design, but his anatomy makes no sense, which is funny because in most of this episode, he is just wearing boxer shorts. So he looks like a head coming out of a pair of pants.
He has no crotch.
He has no crotch.
His
yeah,
legs
just
go
like
right into his chest.
Well, sometimes they even imply that like he wears no pants. Like it's just leg. It's just the boots are attached to his
He'll take them off and then be in his underwear.
Yeah,
it's kind of like Hank Hill's dad. I think he got his shins blown off,
and also like his arms don't make sense. I just love how much they play around with his anatomy and size. Like sometimes he will fit in the palm of Dee Dee's hand.
Yes,
and the way he just like looks so meek and baby like oh please, Dad,
or he'll like go into someone's mouth.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, it's very Ren and Stimpy. Like the rules can change for characters at any second.
Again, talking about the other segment of the episode, it's like him, walking like an animal, and it's like it's beautiful animation.
Though that one has the typical. The 90s dream girl character of like, well, the Asian girl likes me of my sister's friends. Like,
oh my God, I didn't notice that.
That is right.
That felt very of its time. Of like, well, my sister's friends, I guess one of them's cute, the Asian girl. And she'd be smart enough to know that I'm awesome and she'd date me. But yeah, so Dexter. So do you guys think that Dee Dee, I think Dee Dee was earnest in this, but there is a sinister reading that you have that Dee Dee completely negged Dexter there and talked him into a path to his own destruction.
I don't think Dee Dee is that self-aware.
It's a real mind game she's playing with him.
I don't think she's that evil.
No.
She destroys things out of joy and fun.
And then we kind of learn Dexter is so broken that not even this will save him.
Dee Dee! Everything you said was true. I don't want to be a pickle. I need your help. Show me the way to be free. Show me the way of the Dee Dee.
All right. Meet me downstairs in 10 minutes.
Where exactly were we supposed to meet?
Dexter?
Dee Dee?
Yes, my brother, I am here. Are you ready to start a journey of enlightenment?
Yes.
Good. Discard those wrappings which tie you to the lab. There must be a stripping of the old before you start anew. And the gloves.
It sounds like Dexter entered a like desert level in Mario for a second there.
No, I love how, I don't know if it's making fun of it or just it's a cliche of like the obsession Western civilization has with the Indian way of
enlightenment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, on the title card, she's meant to look like Vishnu. Like
That's
she's
right,
in the stance of that. It definitely, she comes off, maybe this wasn't a stereotype back then, but she comes off as the rich older woman who says namaste all the time. Like
they're all over Berkeley.
The eat, pray, love types.
True story.
Yes.
At the place I'm staying at, there's this guy who's just doing all these, what's it called? I don't know how to describe them. Like,
Tai Chi?
Tai Chi, like, to wake himself up. I'm like, what the fuck? He's like the whitest dude I've seen.
Of course.
Tai Chi is a real
That means he's good at it.
Dexter's going to join Kabbalah. This is two cartoon geniuses who reach enlightenment by not wanting to be a pickle.
That's
you're right.
Wow.
But you know what, Henry? You are right. You can read it as Dee Dee humiliating Dexter, but I think she's earnestly trying to help him. And part of that is getting rid of his stuffy uniform.
Yeah, getting rid of his stuffy uniform and then teaching him things that, again, where this is the mid-90s idea of like, well, the indigenous people know all the secrets to the world.
My heart swells with joy seeing you here in the yard. I'm very proud of you. Come, let's begin. Look here, there, Dexter? What do you see?
I see Renicus acris, a buttercup possessing 7 stamens, a stigma, 5 petals, 5 sepals.
Yes, dear. I know you can examine it, but can you see it? Can you smell it? Can you feel it? Can you sing with all the colors of the rain?
Definitely a Pocahontas riff.
Yeah, riffing on another not so sensitive taking of another culture.
It thought it was very sensitive.
Yeah,
at
but
the
it
time.
wasn't.
No, no.
Turns out not.
Playing up the
20 years
cliche,
later.
I know you can see it, but can you see it?
Yeah.
I just love in Pocahontas that they're like, well, the invader and the invaded are equally wrong here. They're both acting like savages. They should be mature. Of like,
Hey.
yeah, the people being invaded should be way more mature.
both sides.
People on both sides.
We got to hear both sides, man.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got to hear both sides of an invasion.
I'm a Pocahontas centrist. I identify with Miko more than anyone
Well, she
else.
was a centrist. She was like, no, I'm going to end up with this white guy. See, white guys are okay.
Yeah, but in the
especially
sequel,
Mel Gibson.
I like the real guy in the sequel.
I love that Mel Gibson gets murdered in the start of the second one.
Yeah.
That was pretty
I
great.
didn't know that. So listening to the sound design of this, it just reminded me of, again, very Ren and Stimpy inspired in that even the smallest motion has a canned Hanna-Barbera sound effect.
I love it. I
like
love
even the blinking, like blink. Yeah.
And this was, I was meant to ask this earlier, this was produced by Hanna-Barbera, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the time when Cartoon Network was pretty much owned, like all their new content was being produced by Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah, pretty much when Turner bought H&B, he kind of had to reformat it and just like, well, you guys finish your existing contracts, but you're going to make new stuff for my cable channels, not for Saturday morning cartoon shows anymore. Like, they're for cable now.
It feels like maybe before A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. No, that was, never mind. I was going to say Yo Yogi feels like the last bad Hanna-Barbera show before this started.
so.
Yo.
We podcasted about that on Laser Time, so I've talked too much about it.
But yeah, you get, I don't know, this is actually kind of philosophical on Dee Dee's part of just like, no, yes, you can name every piece of a flower, but can you see it?
Can you smell it?
And just the acting on her, this original Dee Dee, I was sad. I could tell in season 2 when they replaced her.
I like original Dee Dee.
I like OG Dee Dee a lot more. And so, yes, then she has some more instruction for him. Animal pantomime, which the animators had a lot of fun with this section, I think.
I don't do that animal stuff, sister. I'm a straight up Homo sapien.
You can do this. Just try to visualize.
Oh, very well. Visualize. South Dakota, 140 million years ago. The plains are ruled by a herd of great beasts, the mighty Triceratops. Truly a formidable foe, but his armored hide, massive size, and terrible horns all belie his true nature. For upon closer study of his flat, grinding teeth, it is clear he is a herbivore, a gentle plant eater.
That was very good, Dexter. A little textbook, but we're definitely making progress.
Oh my God! It sounds like he had a breakthrough.
Yeah.
You know, cut him some slack.
Finally felt the primordial feeling there.
Yeah,
But
you didn't play the clip before it, but I loved the way they animated Dee Dee playing a snake, controlling her body, and her tongue is like going out as just.
Yeah, that's another boon to being a board-driven show. Is we're getting a lot of model breaking in this episode. They both changed their outfits, which at that time was like ridiculous to see in a cartoon, because cartoons just like they have their design, they always look that way.
Yeah, like here are the 5 poses Shaggy can do, period. You can never do more than these 5 poses. In fact, we made one running animation. Use it.
forever.
Yeah.
We animated them opening doors in a hallway so well that it can work any place they go to. And the same with like the sing-song cycle they do. It can work for any song. But another thing I really like about this is it's all in his backyard. Like the sense of it is just like that. It's this big idea, but it's all just they never leave his backyard for the natural world.
It's very Rugratsy.
Yes, yeah. I wondered how much it was reminding me of Rugrats just because Christine Cavanaugh's voice is in there, but also it's just the childlike scale of it.
Yeah, it's very domestic too.
Yeah, and I think the animators like the animation on Dexter walking with his horns is just like it's beautiful,
very physical.
I love the way that he opens his mouth wide and then just bites into it,
with his flat teeth.
For me, I'm a guy who I'm not like an animation nerd who appreciate the small details. But for some reason, I'm just every frame of this, I'm like, this is. Even though it's SD and looks ugly on my iPad screen, but I really like looking at it for some reason.
Yeah, you can really see the intentionality behind every drawing, and it's not just this is the stock Dexter pose 14A in which Dexter is smiling.
And it's very warm. I like that too. But also that dinosaur scene takes me back to Samurai Jack, because Samurai Jack was like, we need no excuse to draw whatever we want, because Samurai Jack will just turn a corner. He's like, now he's in a steampunk place.
Yeah,
now he's in Dinosaur Land,
where everything's canon.
Anything works. Then he'll run into a cartoon dog. But in Dexter, they have to be like, okay, he fantasizes about dinosaurs. Now I get to draw dinosaurs. All right. This next bit that I have a clip for, I love this so much because in 1996, if I saw a reference to Star Wars, it was not how it is now, where everything's a fucking Star Wars reference. I can't avoid it. I'm happier when Venture Brothers doesn't do a Star Wars reference because they did too many. But back in 1996, if something did a very explicit Star Wars reference, I was bouncing off the walls, and that's how it was in this sequence of the episode.
Along with mental exercise, one must balance it with physical exercise. It's all about the balance. As one climbs for new heights, one may reach the end of his rope. But upon achieving a balance between both halves, the two turn round upon themselves, creating a wheel, spinning themselves higher and higher and higher.
That was the Yoda training sequence from Empire Strikes Back.
I didn't know that. Okay.
He's wearing her like a backpack.
He's wearing her like a backpack.
Right. Okay.
He's upside down balancing her, which is how Luke is balanced when lifting up all those rocks. As Yoda's teaching him about the Force and balance, and then Yoda falls over because he loses his balance with the Force.
Yeah, in the 90s also they had references to another fantasy trilogy, Lord of the Rings. I saw I don't know if it was a movie or show before Lord of the Rings movie came out, and it's like, oh, look at these nerds reading Lord of the Rings. I'm like, yeah, can't wait to see it 5 years later when it's a freaking cultural phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, they could recreate an entire sequence from Empire Strikes Back then, and it was just a cool thing for dorks to notice. But now it's like I don't know. I feel like they'd promote the hell out of it, like the Star Wars episode of Dexter's Laboratory.
Yeah, and just 2 years earlier we had Clerks, and the main appeal of that is like, get this, it's a movie where two white guys talk about Star Wars. I got tickets, we're going.
We couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Now I've had more than enough of me on the big screen. I don't need to see that anymore.
That's illustrated very well in a Parks and Rec episode where they're still making fun of Ben for liking Star Wars, and he's like, everyone likes Star Wars now. It's not a nerd thing anymore.
That's great.
Right. Oh God, I love that joke. So after that, it's time for the final test.
Are you sure you're ready, Dexter? This is the final and most important exercise of all.
Heck yeah, I'm a triceratops balanced on a buttercup with spinning wheels, baby. Let's do this.
Okay. This is all about self-expression. Let it flow through your mind and body. Just let it loose. Break out.
Yeah, I've seen you do it 1,000,000 times. Just hit the music.
Yeah, so that Triceratop on a buttercup with spinning wheels is just like kind of monkey cheese cartoon dialogue. But Christine Cavanaugh makes it the funniest thing in this episode.
Spinning wheels, baby.
Well, it sounds like something from a punk rock song or something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a dynamite ready to explode or whatever.
Well, it's like just combining all of his training into one expression, but it's just like, it is sort of like random humor, but that line delivery, no one else would do that but her. Like, that's so amazing.
Baby.
And it's in again, Eastern European accent, which makes it even funnier.
It is, yes. Those people are naturally funny.
When I was a kid and would watch this show, the way that Dee Dee destroys these giant metal objects, she shows like superhuman strength and agility while smashing these things.
Just by dancing around.
Yeah, these machines that seemingly do nothing.
Ballet got her in very good shape.
Again, speaking as a machines guy, the machines break pretty easily.
I guess, yeah, that's true. And so then Dexter, hearing the music, does what Dee Dee does, except he is loving the destruction much more than her. Dee Dee laughs and has fun jumping around his place, but you don't really feel like she enjoys the destruction. She just enjoys existing, and her existence destroys things. But meanwhile, Dexter is cackling maniacally as he destroys his place. My favorite of the animation is him sliding down a dish and then flinging it at the previously seen green tubes of liquid and just it all flying out. It's beautiful.
So, like, the message they're getting to is Dee Dee is trying to help Dexter find his essence, and that essence we find out is evil, while Dee Dee's is pureness and light.
It actually reminds me of, again, Star Wars, where they're just like, wait, I trained you in the Jedi arts not to be a Sith. No!
He goes to the dark side.
Reckless. Scary. Dexter, stop! Stop it, Dexter. Look at yourself. You're a monster. No longer the quiet creator, but a mad destroyer. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have pushed you. I know now it wasn't my place to try to change you. Oh, Dexter, please forgive me. Oh, what have I done?
And then it just ends with Dexter quietly repairing his lab. And I want to say, I feel like at first they are playing the melodrama for comedy, but then it seems like they want you to feel something at the end, which is a very odd choice, but an interesting one.
And that's the reason why I chose the episode, because as a kid, I saw that the ending of it. I'm like, okay, where's the joke? Wait, what? No.
Yeah.
What?
They don't undercut the emotionality of it, and it's like Dexter has a lot to think about now. It's like, is this who I am inside?
They could have had like a fart sound or something, or even have like a bit of his lab fall on his head at the end, like, hey. But you definitely are supposed to feel for Dee Dee of like, Dee Dee only wanted to help, and she made him into a monster, and that broke her heart.
It makes her a very sympathetic character.
And that's great acting on her as well. And just her tears of like, I shouldn't have tried to change you.
And she slaps Dexter in the face.
Well, it was a very 50s movie slap of like, you're hysterical slap. Like,
And then Dexter like does that thing that is very familiar to all of us, where like if you're confronted with something horrible or scary or upsetting, you're like, I just want to play video games. Like whatever you're familiar with, you just put yourself into that.
But,
so he just goes back to turning that wrench.
So I only remember the ending, but then rewatching the episode, I'm like, it's different from a lot of Dexter's setups. It's like Dexter's Board's setups, where it's like, the setup sometimes is him being stuck saying the same phrase in French, and it's just funny, or he has a beard and it's funny, or just and it's like he's just this badass character who just beats up gangsters, and or the setup is like, mom is gone, so I'm just gonna build a robot mom, and it's but this one is the setup is like, it's just you're just being too enamored in your own stuff, let loose, but then it just backfires on Dee Dee, and it's like the whole episode feels like an indie movie. And it's like, that's so weird.
Dexter became his own destroyer instead of letting Dee Dee be it.
And I think all that science work is what's keeping the monster at bay within Dexter. We're looking really deep into this, by the way.
We learned that in Ego Trip, he kind of brings the downfall of the planet.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's such a good movie.
But while I have this opportunity to just love on Dexter's Lab real quick, you mentioned the beard episode,
right?
Which may be my favorite episode. That episode's so funny. But the two things jumped to my mind about that. One, that Fred Flintstone and George Jetson show up in the episode.
That's
and Fred Flintstone's wearing flip-flops, which is funny. That's the way they updated him today. Right. But also that episode was like the first time I remember a really cool, really badass, really strong black dude being in a cartoon that I would watch. Like that character, I forget his name. It's basically Action Jackson. It's something like that.
It actually reminded me of a segment Cartoon Network used to do. Is like, look at these Easter eggs in the show.
I just think of that.
There was this episode of Powerpuff Girls, and it says the beginning of it is like, look, that's Dexter's dad. Like, what?
Yeah,
Easter eggs. That's crazy.
They would have like a little like everything would be, they would blur it out and highlight it.
Exactly. And Disney used to do that, but with Mickey Mouse's silhouette.
Oh, neat. I wanted to bring that up. That's the one character that's missing. Well, several characters are missing, but the one character I love who's missing is Dexter's dad, who is great. Yeah. And I think at a certain point, Jeff Bennett, doing it like Dexter, like a real like 60s dad. But I feel like at a certain point, the creators of the show got more interested in writing for the dad, sort of like Randy on South Park, because he is a great character who has the ability to do more things because he's an adult and he does not have like magic powers.
There's an episode where he like kind of loses his mind, is like the whole family is out to kill him.
That one is so great. I watched one where he was doing an arm wrestling contest, and not Homer. Dexter has to build him like a robot arm.
Yes, yeah. Both of his parents are so great, and that his mom has the. Are you aware of like her internet second career now, which is she's basically the mom from The Incredibles Incredibles where we're all realizing like, oh, she
Oh
gave
my
me like every
God.
fetish I've grown to have in my life.
I love the brief. I love the little detail in her design that she's always wearing kitchen gloves on her hands,
which is like kind of like I think
there's an origin episode about that. It's like
Really?
like that Simpsons episode where they met in college. They did like where the dad and mom meet, and he gives the gloves as a gift. And
I think I think it might be called a mom and dad cartoon.
And I think it's where Dexter gets it from. I think they kind of imply that he wears gloves because of his mom.
And in this episode, I love when he puts the gloves back on before picking back up the wrench and refixing everything in quiet. But this, that's something too I love about Dexter is that his lab gets destroyed at the end of probably a third of the cartoons he's in, and it always will be rebuilt by the next one, so it can never be destroyed or kept safe forever. It's that's just a constant state that his laboratory is, laboratory.
It's one of my favorite segments. Episode, like I don't remember which episode it was, but like a third of the house reveals itself when he was wearing riding a spaceship, and it just launches. It's like you had a freaking launcher under your house.
The cartoony Doctor Who physics of his lab are the best part of the show. That he gets there from his room, which is upstairs, but it's this giant labyrinth that's underground.
And I just love there's no consistency to it. He enters it a different way every episode. He leaves it a different way every episode. There's different parts of it everywhere. Like it can have whatever he needs it to have.
And when they redesigned the show, it took on a more like 60s spy space movie kind of aesthetic, where there was a lot rounder and had a lot more like black windows and things like that around it.
Though one thing I did not like about the new seasons was they added this unneeded backstory to Mandark. Mandark, his ultimate rival, is the greatest. But and then having hippie parents, and then his real name is Flower Child or something, or just Flower. No, it's
a girl's
Debbie,
name.
Or
it's
a girl's name.
Some girl's name. I forget what it is.
And it's just like
it's funny, a guy with a girl's name.
It's a hat on a hat. They don't need that. Eddie Deason as Mandark is great
and
as
his name
it is.
Mandark. Like that's what he replaces a woman's name with.
Well, it's like our listeners just heard an hour-long Dexter's Lab podcast, but I don't think I need to, but I will encourage all of you, go on to Hulu. It's all there. It really holds up. It reminds me of the modern Cartoon Network cartoons in that it's made by adults who like cartoons. It was like not just made for kids. It's like they were entertaining themselves, and you can really tell based on the things I watched.
It wasn't toyetic enough. That's was his biggest problem. You can't... Who's going to hug a Dexter? He's too mean.
But I would kill for that.
I'd hug Buttercup and Bubbles, but not Dexter.
And even though the second iteration of the show isn't as good, but I still loved it. It still had a lot of creative ideas behind it.
If we ever do another Dexter, the next Dexter we do, I do want it to be the Dial-In for Monkey Galactus one, because that is Macho Man Randy Savage's appearance on the show.
Yeah, I love that too, and I get none of the references.
And also, I can bring up that it became him being on Dial-In for Monkey was actually a plot point for Macho Man on Nitro.
Oh, dear God.
He had a feud with somebody, just like, you're just jealous of me appearing on Dial-In for Monkey on TNT.
That sounds like a promo to me. So let's wrap up here. You guys all set?
I love Dexter. Yeah, I mean, just going back to it reminded me how much I loved Dexter as a kid and, well, as a teen, and how much I still enjoy. I think probably if I rewatched at least all of the Gendy years of Dexter, I would rediscover like, whoa, this was ahead of its time.
I got a lot more jokes now, or realized there were more jokes.
Yeah, I hope that it's a great episode of a great show. I'm glad you picked it, Aziz. It's so much fun. I
love the melancholy ending.
I'm glad I picked it too. I am a great guest.
You're great. I hope that they get some kind of like Nicktoons second win like they're having now, where Aziz just gave you guys a Funko Pop of Cat Dog. I want stuff like that from the cartoon. Like, I mean, I guess the new Powerpuff Girls show, but that show sucks.
Oh, it does. Yeah,
it sucks.
Just give me merchandise of the old shows. Give me a Johnny Bravo action figure.
I feel like every Nicktoon is now getting a movie or a short. There is there was a new Hey Arnold movie. There's going to be a new Rocko's Modern Life movie. There's going to be a new Ren and Stimpy short, I believe. So I think this could possibly come back in some form, maybe like one episode. Just
they could Kickstarter Ren and Stimpy short and deliver it 4 years later.
Well, it hasn't been delivered at all yet, right?
I honestly don't want it to go back. Like I'm a fan of always new stuff. I don't like something.
I
like
even though new.
No, I just want merchandise. Just take my money. I don't need new episodes. It won't be as good.
Even though Samurai Jack's return was great, but because it wasn't as strong as it it needed to be. That's why there's a new season needed. But like Dexter's Lab, you don't need it to come back. It's a relic of the 90s, and I want it to stay that way.
I don't know. If I could trade Camp Lazlo for more Rocko's Modern Life,
I would too. It's not terrible, but I just want more Rocko.
Yeah, it's just not as good.
Yeah.
Although that guy has a very good book about how to make...
Joel Murray.
Joe Murray is a great book about how to make and pitch a cartoon, and it's mostly about him pitching Camp Lazlo, because he's like, was a different pitching... The pitching cycle, the way it exists now, was a lot more similar then than when there were no cartoons made by people, and not just made by machines. So check... I forget what it's called, but it's really good. Joe Murray, it's on Amazon.
Awesome, we'll check it out. So thanks for listening, folks, to this unnamed podcast that will be named by the time you hear this, and I've been your host for this one, Bob Mackey. Thank you so much, Aziz, for coming to the show and for giving us lots of money to do this podcast. It let me watch Dexter's Lab again. It enabled me to watch Dexter's Lab again, and I'm really enjoying it. And in fact, I might just go back and watch all of it now. So
yes, thank you very much, Aziz.
You guys are welcome. And again, Bob, I'm not joking. Debate me, goddammit.
Okay, we'll happen off the air. But as I said, I've been your host, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. Go to retronauts.com or look for Retronauts in your podcast device. It's a classic gaming podcast. You know what it is. Anyone else have anything to plug?
I mean, I'm HNERYG on Twitter. You can see me as a straight up Homo sapien there. And yeah, I tweet about tons of cool stuff. But also, if you're not a listener to Talking Simpsons, come on, we do this, but for every episode of The Simpsons from the beginning. And this was created thanks to support on Patreon, specifically Aziz's support at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Just $5 a month will get you access to a ton of cool stuff. $10 a month, even more cool things. So patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Hey, I love talking about old cartoons. I do it all the time on my YouTube show, youtube.com/cartoons101. And I make videos there, but I also have a Patreon that supports that and me at patreon.com/cartoons101, where you get a whole bonus podcast, just like this one, that was unlocked because I have patrons. The current series we're doing is called Conversation Genesis Evangelion, which is me and a bunch of my cool internet nerd friends like you guys talking about the show Neon Genesis Evangelion in order for the 26 episodes. Each episode covers 2 or 3 episodes of the show, so you get a lot of meat there, and you get cool guests on it like you guys and Dawn from the Anime Nostalgia Podcast, who solved the Miami Mike mystery. We get to hear Alex Fraioli from No More Whoppers, Tristan Cooper from Dorkly, a bunch of awesome people, and also I'm going to be doing some interviews with people like Scott Gardner, creator of Moonbeam City and host a podcast, The Ride, one of the best podcasts around right now. I have no problem saying this, the best podcast about theme parks. There are not many good podcasts about theme parks.
Awesome.
But anyways, if you, I'm not an animation nerd, but if you want to hear me talk about movies non-fucking stop, you can follow me on Twitter at 2, as in the number way, as in the road, Jerry, as in the mouse. Yeah, so yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting me, and I hope the next guest will be as good as me.
Oh, I hope so too. Thank you, Aziz. Thanks for listening to this unnamed podcast. We'll see you next week with more cartoony goodness. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Enter at your own peril. Past a bolted door where impossible things may happen that the world's never seen before.
In Dexter's laboratory lives the smartest boy you've ever seen. But Genie blows his experiments to smithereens. There is gloom and doom while things